Hey there, everybody. This is Ryan Mendenhall with Future House Publishing, and I'm here with our latest author, Kevin Nielsen, who created this wonderful land of sands. Wow, that's kind of hard to see, but we've got right hot off the presses. We've got the cover here, so you guys are gonna be able to get this pretty soon in print version. It's available for now in Kindle, and it's doing some cool stuff in the bestseller list. Kevin is glad to be with us, I hear.
Yes, I am very glad to be with you.
And Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what SANS is? Tell us where it came from and what it's about.
Okay. Well, SANS, I have my wonderful Kindle here. If the screen would stay the right way, those Kindles. Look, SANS is a great book. Obviously, I wrote it, I think so, but basically the premise is that for 9 months of the year, this desert, the Shawnee Desert, is safe. The clans that live there can do whatever they want. But for 3 months of the year, the Janissary monsters attack. And these monsters, they're either really small or really big. They can kill a single person. They can destroy an entire clan. They're really bad news. And suddenly, it changes. It's no longer the 9 months and the three months. And it follows the story of a girl named Laurel as she struggles to overcome these new challenges and learn about these magical powers that she has that pretty frankly overwhelm her. And she is forced to find herself as she tries to confront those challenges.
Cool, Kevin. So obviously authors got inspiration from somewhere, got their inspiration for their story from all kinds of places. What kind of inspirations do you have for this story? The land that you created, the characters, the culture. It sounds like, there's a unique, a very distinct culture in the book as well. So where do those inspirations come from?
Well, I write somewhat organically. So no, I write as concepts come to me. And I got this concept of these monsters, the Janissary. They're kind of like giant eels or snakes that, they burrow through the sands and they can fly, using some cool properties that you learn about in the book. And I got that concept one day when I was watching the Avengers movie, the first one. So, when the Jatari come out from their little space hole, spoiler alert, there's Jatari coming out of a space hole. And I thought that these flying critters were wonderful, but I thought they were a little too large and too all powerful to really fit into this world that I was coming up with at the time. And so I shrunk them down, and I made multiple different classes and genres of them, and put it so that the concept was there. And so I started with that concept, that conflict, and then put it in a desert. And it ended up being a desert because of these monsters, because I thought it would be really cool to have them burrowing through sands. And then I came up with the character, and the culture itself just kind of developed. I didn't really grab it from anywhere. It just kind of happened. I came up with that original, how the story opens, that scene, that marriage scene, and the rest of the culture just developed off of that one scene in the beginning of the book. So.
Very cool, very cool. Are there any books that someone may have read that this might remind them of?
Certainly. I like to describe it to people as Dune meets the Maze Runner, since it has certain similarities to that. Dune is more the environment and some of the political intrigue. The Maze Runner is the action-packed, what's going on, trying to figure out how to overcome the challenges that they're facing. But since a lot of people don't know what Dune is, because it's a deep fantasy novel, and I also like to explain it as Tatooine, but with fantasy instead of science fiction.
Awesome. Good classical Star Wars reference there.
Of course. Gotta throw Star Wars in there.
Yeah, maybe I'll do, if you guys are lucky, I'll do my Chewbacca at the end of this interview.
Oh,
If you're lucky, right? So, Kevin, tell us, you chose this genre, you chose fantasy. What it is about fantasy that intrigues you? Why did you choose to write fantasy?
Well, I think fantasy is, in my estimation, and to a lesser extent, science fiction. I haven't ventured into science fiction as much, but science fiction and fantasy are the perfect genre. You know, it's one that you can find a 10-year-old reading, but you can also find a 98-year-old woman reading, because it's not something that's, it's not a literary fiction. It's not sometimes too deep. It's something that you can tell a story that teaches you a lesson, but put a sugar coating on it. So it's like medicine. I look at fantasy like, a sugar coated medicine. The spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down from Mary Poppins. Fantasy is very much, I can tell a story about a girl that has to overcome the challenges of her day, add monsters and magic, and at the end of the story, hey, girls that are facing challenges in their life, or young men, or anyone for that matter that's facing challenges in their life, can learn, hey, just because the going gets tough doesn't mean it's impossible. And they come away learning a lesson while also being entertained and enjoying themselves.
That's very cool. I love when there's, a message, and I love when it's not over and it's hitting me over the head. So that's really cool. Now, Kevin, we were talking a couple weeks ago, and you mentioned that you actually were invited over to James Dashner's house, the one who created Maze Runner. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and specifically what advice he gave you as a writer? Because that's kind of a mystery, but it's really cool that you got advice from this, now a super hit runaway, movie, and it all came from that guy's head. So what did he tell you?
Of course. So I have a writing group, and they were at a writing convention, writing for charity here in Utah. And one of the things on auction was a dinner with James Dashner, and we won that auction to get dinner at the Dashners. And it was great. He's got a great house. I'm very jealous of his library. It's like 3 stories tall. He has one of those beautiful ladders that, you go all the way around and it rolls.
Yeah.
So those are beautiful. I'm very jealous. I want one day. But the 3 main things that he stressed was primarily, number 1 was write prolifically. So just write a lot. Keep writing. If your first book doesn't do well, write a second. If that doesn't do well, write a third, write a fourth, write a fifth, and just keep writing. The second was to write, how do I phrase it? It was to write well. So practice your craft. And that comes along with writing prolifically, is the more you write, the better you get at it. And the third was kind of ironic, but also I think probably the best piece of advice was be nice. Many times we run across people in our daily lives that are mean, and we don't want to associate with them. And as authors, we have to develop those relationships, develop those connections with other people. And you're never going to get a publishing contract from someone you've burned a bridge with. You're never going to be successful if you've alienated half your fandom because you're not a nice person. And so as simple as that sounds, I think the biggest piece of advice I took out of being there with James Dashner was be nice. Be a nice person, and people will want to buy your stuff because you are a nice person, because you haven't alienated them.
Well, that's very cool, and he's he's an example of that. He gave you all that advice. He asked you to tweet him when your book came out, and you did, and he's shared it with his audience. So that's very cool. And I just like to end on a nice note. Like, it's not the Chewbacca, don't worry. I was just kidding about that. But you have created this world, and when people fall in love with it, by the way, you guys can get this. It's up on Amazon now. You can just go to Amazon and search for Sands by Kevin Nielsen, Nielsen, and just grab a copy of that book. It's at a lower price right now for an introductory offer, so grab it. And once people fall in love with this book, Kevin, have you created more of that world for them to experience? Are you creating more?
I have. So, the big caveat I give to people when they read Sands is that it's book 1 of a series. It's plotted out to be a 5-book series. So if you're wanting full resolution by the end of book one, it's not going to happen because it's a series. You know, series don't resolve at the end of book one. I'd say about halfway through the book two. It's all outlined. All the books are plotted. Hopefully, I can get all the first drafts and everything done by, say, October time frame. And, you know, if we're lucky, we could see Sands 2 in next spring, you know, February, March time frame if we're lucky. So, I mean, it's close. You don't have to wait a whole year or 2 years for the next one. I'm working on it already, and it'll be done quickly, I promise.
Awesome. That's what we love to hear. So you guys, thanks for joining us today. A little conversation into the world of Sands with Kevin Nielsen. Kevin L. Nielsen is what is on the book, so look out for that too. Thanks for joining us, Kevin. Thanks for being an author, and thanks for sharing fantasy and fun with the world.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
Have a good day, everybody.